Hello guys, welcome to our session today. I'm very happy to be here with you. I hope that you all are doing great today. Well, today we are going to be learning about a topic in relative clauses. This is going to be our topic for today, and we are going to I will present the agenda for today. We are going to learn when do we use them, where do we use them, some relative pronouns, and also we will be learning about defining and not defining relative clauses. And at the end, if there are some questions, absolutely we are here to help. So let's start. um okay, so here we have two questions. When do we use a relative pronoun? What's a relative clause? So let's learn what this is. A relative pronoun is used to identify, define, or give additional information about a noun. The information that follows the pronoun is inside of relative clauses. Okay, so let's move on. Where do we use them? We use them after a noun. Here we have some relative pronouns that you need to know. We have that, we have where, whose, who, which, when, and whom. Those are some relative pronouns. So, as I was mentioned before, we have two different relative clauses. We have the defining relative clauses and the non-defining relative clauses. Let's see what is a defining relative clause. This is used actually to identify or define the noun we are talking about. So let's see some examples so that you can have a better idea. For example, here, which one to use? We have relative clauses for people, objects, and animals. In here, we have the ones that we use for people: who, that, whose, and whom. Then let's go to some examples here. Examples using for relative clauses for people. Okay, so the first one is: this is the woman who or that stole my heart. So we are using, if you see here, the relative clause to describe the noun, in this case, woman. So the next one is the man whose book I borrow. So you are describing and you are basically saying whose is the man that borrowed your book. Then the next example we have: that is the man who split my drink, or that's the man that split my drink. So those are some examples using this one. Let's go to some examples using objects and animals. But before doing so, I would like to show you again the picture here. Objects. We use which and that for objects. So now let's see some examples using which and that. And also we use them for animals as well, which, that. So let's see the examples here. The first one: the dog which or that beat me. So remember that we can use which or that to describe the noun, in this case the dog. The next one is the camera that Isabel bought, or you can say the camera which Isabel bought. Then the cat which I adopt, or the cat that I adopt. Both of them are correct, so you can use them to describe objects and animals. So now let's continue. Also, we have some relative clauses for places, times, and reason. Okay, so now let's go with the next part. Also, we use relative clauses for places, times, and reason. We here have the ones that we use for this kind of places, times, and reason: where, when, why. can be used as relative pronouns. So here we have some examples. The library where we met. The date when we met. Or you can also say the date that we met. Then we have the reason why or that I was at the library. So you can use both of them. And also here we have a notation, very important. You can use that instead of when or why as well. So remember that. So now let's go with the next one. Can we drop the relative pronoun? Well, let's see if we can do it. Well, if the information is related to the object of the sentence, you can drop it. For example, who, whom, that, which, when, and why. Here we have some examples. Okay, so the first example is the cat whicher that I adopt. The cat I adopt. So in here you can see that you can drop it. However, you can still use it because you are referring to that specific cat. Then we have the date when we met. When or that. The day we met. So if you see, we can also drop it. The sentence do not lose the meaning. It's we understand the sentence. But we use when and that, to reference to that specific date. Then we have the reason why or that. Okay, so the next one, the reason why or that I was at the library. The reason I was at the library. So you can also drop it here. Then that's the guy whom she married. That's the guy she married. So the sentence, it's still meaning something here, but as I was mentioned previously, we can use it in order to reference that specific guy in this case. So let's continue. Here, when you can't drop it in here. For example, the dog which your dad bit me. The dog bit me. The man whose book I borrow. The man book I borrow. In this case, we can because we will. If we see, we lose the meaning here. We cannot say the man book I borrow. So you can say the man whose book I borrow because you are referring to that specific man. The last one, this is the woman who or that stole my heart. So here we can drop it. So then we have some explanation about defining and not defining relative clauses. So first, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about non-defining relative clauses. Well, this gives additional information about a person, thing, or animal. We don't need this information to understand the sentence, but you have to use a comma here. This is for you to know. So let's see some examples. Okay, so I live in London. I live in London, and then you see the next. London has fantastic pork. Using the relative clause, you will use which because remember that we are talking about a place, and we can use which or that. I live in London, which has fantastic pork. Okay, so the next one is I live with my sister. My sister knows a lot about cars. My sister, who I live with, knows a lot about cars. So here we have some examples using these non-relative clauses. So remember that we use them for additional information. So then we have here the question session. Okay, so just to summarize what we have learned, remember I would like to say that we use the relative clauses, the non-defining relative clauses, to provide additional information, and then define relative clauses, those are to give essential information as we were seeing and studying here. As we were studying here, the cases when we cannot drop it. Okay, so remember about that. It's very important. So it was a really pleasure to help you out, to be with you today, and give you this session. I hope this can be a great experience for you and a great learning. So, well, it seems in here that the session, the questions that you might have is absolutely next session we will be able or I will be able to help you out with them, and I will give you the answers and some other examples as well if you need it. And well, thank you very much for your time. This is the end of our session today. Take care and be safe, guys. Thank you so much.